Or that was the foxhole one.
That was the foxhole one.
This Amateur Radio Roundtable is brought to you in part by ICOM America. Well, hello everybody out there. Hey, today is July the 30th, 2019. I usually can't remember that. But man, July's gone already. Where'd it go? But you know what that means? Well, we got one more day in July, I think. But you know, what does that mean? That means Huntsville Hamfest, the one we look forward to every year. It's coming up here in a couple weeks, so we'll talk more about that a little later. Katie called in tonight. She's taking her Amateur Radio Roundtable benefits. She's taking another vacation day today, but she'll be back next week. I talked to Dave on the 40-meter net. I tried getting Dave on here. I don't know if Dave's going to be with us or not. I'll have to check again in a few minutes. But I think we got a good show for you tonight. This show is also simulcast on international shortwave station WBCQ on 5130 kilohertz out of Monticello, Maine. And if you're listening on shortwave tonight, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to tom@w5kub.com and tell us where you are and give us a signal report and all that kind of good stuff. And if you have internet right now, go on over on the internet to w5kub.com and join us. You can watch us. It's almost like a TV show, except it's better. And you can join us on video, and we've got a chat room there. We're going to open the phone lines up a little later tonight. I think we've got an interesting show tonight. We're going to be talking about, you know, a lot of different aspects about ham radio. Ham radio, the old days. Martin and I love talking about that. But we'll probably touch on that a little bit. We're going to be talking a little bit more about HOAs and getting an antenna to work in an HOA. We want to be able to put an invisible antenna up where you can make HF contacts. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. Let's see. Join us on Facebook. Join our Facebook group. It's just called W5KUB. We've got about 7,750 members in there now, so join us. We'd love to have you. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I think I put a link on our page right above the chat room button. You can subscribe there. Hey, we had a great net tonight on 40 meters. We had a lot of check-ins tonight on 40 meters. That's my log. How you like it? Maybe Martin and I will talk about logs in a little while. This is not a log like we used to keep. Is it, Martin? We didn't used to keep one like this, did we?
No, not exactly. We had
more
organization back then.
Can you imagine me giving that to the FCC? You know? Oh man, they'd have my license 50 years ago, wouldn't they?
That's right.
But anyway, hey, we had some new people check in the net tonight. Hey, just a couple people real quick. I don't know if you're in the chat room. A new general came on, KE8KXR. AC9UL came on. I was his actually first HF contact ever, and I made that with him tonight. He's in East Central Wisconsin. We've got a new general in here, K4GDF, Jerry in Central Florida. We had a bunch of new check-ins tonight in the net. So we've got a 40-meter net that meets every Tuesday prior to the show, about 5:30 p.m. Central Time. So please join us there. Tonight, our first guest, which we have every month, is Rich Mollison, and Rich is the chief editor or what's your title, Rich?
Editor.
Editor, okay. He's chief editor. He's the editor for CQ Magazine, and we're going to be talking a little about CQ for a few minutes, what's coming up. And also, you got a special announcement, too, I think, don't you? So let me bring Rich in here, and we'll just get started here. And we got Rich and Martin remotely, and we're going to jump over to them right now. So, Rich, go ahead, man. How you doing?
Alrighty. I'm hot here in New Jersey, but other than that, just having a good time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the August issue of CQ, but first I want to let people know about the 2019 Bill Pasternak Memorial Amateur Radio Newsline Young Ham of the Year. CQ has been a long-time co-sponsor of the Young Ham of the Year program, and we're very pleased to announce that Drew Vreba, KC9ZJX, who I think you've had on the show a couple of times, is our unanimous selection this year to be the Young Ham of the Year. He's a pretty amazing kid. I'll tell you, there were several very amazing nominees, and it was a very difficult choice for all the judges to make. Drew has been the coordinator for two amateur radio on the International Space Station contacts, one at his middle school and one that he did kind of by remote control for the World Scout Jamboree just earlier this month. So that was pretty amazing. He was also on the Dave Coulter Memorial Youth DX Adventure and operated from Curacao as PJ2Y last summer. And he is a previous speaker at Carol Perry, WB2MGP's Dayton Youth Forum, and he won the Presidential Award from AMSAT, the Young Ham Lends a Hand Award, AMSAT from the award from the 2019 Dayton Youth Forum, and the Radio Club of America Young Achievers Award. He's promotes ham radio wherever he goes, and that has included India, where his family is from. He has made a presentation there, and so he's promoting ham radio all over the world, which is pretty amazing. Interesting thing I noted here in his bio, one of the things that he's done fairly recently at the AMSAT booth at the 2019 Hamvention, he signed up for the Amateur Radio Exploration on the Moon project, which kind of leads right into what I'm planning to talk about with the August issue of CQ. But before we get to that, I want to offer our congratulations to Drew, and he will be receiving the award along with a variety of prizes from Newsline, Yaesu, CQ, Heil Sound, and there's Drew now. Radio waves antennas at the Huntsville Hamfest.
And as always, we will be webcasting the Young Ham of the Year to the world. And you know, you were talking about this is the Bill Pasternak. You know, I think Bill started this, was one of the ones that started it. And you know, I think the last year when Bill's health was getting kind of down, he couldn't make it, but I was so happy to be able to talk to Bill and be able to let him watch the Young Ham of the Year. He was so excited about it.
Well, that's fantastic. And but you know, the shifting gears a little bit here and getting into the August issue of CQ, in the Ham Radio on the Moon, you know, back in our July issue, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the moon landing with some speculation about when the first lunar de-expedition was going to happen, and that's something that Drew is looking forward to perhaps being part of sometime. But you know, right after that issue went to press, we got word of something very close to it, the first ever repeater QSO via a satellite in orbit around the moon. There's a Chinese-built ham satellite orbiting the moon. It was launched last fall, and it's been in use pretty regularly by people who can telecommand the camera on board the satellite to send back pictures from the dark side of the moon, but it also has a digital transponder on it, and it was used July 1st for the first time for a QSO in two different digital modes between the control station in China and another station in Germany. So that is just, well, out of this world, really is.
Yeah.
And
man.
That's one of the things that I talk about in my August editorial, is that contact and an FT8 contact across the Atlantic Ocean on 2 meters. You know, for decades now, people have been trying to cross the Atlantic on 2 meters. We know there are ducts out there, and we know that in from California to Hawaii, there's a well-established VHF and UHF duct that comes up every summer. And hams have been trying for decades to find the equivalent of that on the Atlantic side. And I was, as I write in the August issue, I was involved in one effort 20-something years ago to contact Ireland from North Carolina. It didn't work, but the theory was right. The technology wasn't there yet for it, and this relatively new FT8 digital technology really allows you to have contacts under the noise, and they were able to make a contact from where was it from? Cape Verde to several islands in the Caribbean. So that's also amazing, you know. And I always read about things like this and think about how many people talk about how ham radio is old-fashioned and that the hobby is falling behind the technological curve. Yet here we are with a cutting-edge digital mode, being able to basically ride a weather front across the Atlantic Ocean, and a satellite built by hams orbiting the moon and able to take pictures and send them back on command, and to support a two-way contact. This is not a hobby that is behind the times technically. So people need to keep that in mind when they feel like getting down on ham radio technically. So moving inside the August issue, ta-da! We've got on our cover a story on hams versus tortoises. The story of 3D expeditions to the Galapagos Islands by Jim Milner, WB2REM. His first one was back in 1981, and then he returned last year and earlier this year. And it's very, very interesting story about that. We've got the results of the 2019 160 CQ Worldwide 160 meter contest. And of course, being in a sunspot minimum, this is prime time for the low bands. So 160 was hot, and it showed in the contest results. We've also got the rules for the CQ Worldwide DX contest coming up this fall. Single sideband weekend, October 26th and 27th. The CW weekend, November 23rd and 24th. And don't worry if there aren't any sunspots. The CQ Worldwide makes its own propagation. And don't think I'm joking, because I'm not. Other articles in the current issue include Carol Perry's report on her 32nd Dayton Youth Forum. And we even got a picture of Drew in there receiving the Young Hams Help Lend a Hand Award. Let's see if I can find that here. Here we go. Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
So, and beyond that, an eclectic mix of technical articles with WB9YBM has a piece on bringing new life to old radios. WD8OYG has an article on building a 4K FM audio filter It's a 4 kilohertz bandwidth FM audio filter. We were talking about HOAs and invisible antennas before. WB2SNG article on a rain gutter antenna that he's using for primarily FT8 and making contacts all over the place on it. Also in the antenna department, WADRD has a way to use gate latches to build a tiltable antenna mast to sit against the side of your house, and then you can use the gate latches to control bringing it up, or putting it up and bringing it down. Among our columns, W4ALT, our emergency communications editor, has a comprehensive list of hurricane nets, which is good to know about as we get into the midst of hurricane season. Joe Eisenberg, K0NEB, our kit building editor and one of your regulars, has his report on what he found at Dayton, including a bunch of stuff from QRP guys and a couple of other kit makers. In our Analog Adventures column by KL7AJ, he gets into a discussion of the incomparable comparator, which purists will note is digital, not analog, but what can we say? So it's radio. No, radio is analog, not digital. Never mind. Mobilling editor AA6JR brings us up to date on operating from motorhomes, RVs, and mobile homes. And homing in editor, K0OV, writes about Doppler RDF mapping on your phone or tablet. So if you're doing fox hunting, radio direction finding, you can mix and match the radio with your phone or tablet to do Doppler location. Very, very interesting piece. And Joe, by the way, announced that he is retiring as the ARRL's ARDF coordinator, but he will be staying on as homing in editor for CQ and coordinator of our annual CQ Worldwide Fox Hunting Weekend. VHF Plus editor Tony Emanuel, K8ZR, has a report on the EME Rovers Amateur Radio Club's Grid D expedition to FM13, which is a really interesting grid because it's not really hard to get to. It's on the coast of North Carolina, but 99% of that grid is in the Atlantic Ocean. So it's actually quite rare, even though it's not that difficult to get to. So there's a good story on a group that went down and activated that grid. And finally, the contesting editor, Dave Siddall, K3ZJ, reports on 2 new contests coming on: the Young Amateurs Radio Club Summer QSO Party and the Worldwide DigiDX contest sponsored by the Worldwide Radio Operators Foundation. That's a sampling of what's coming up in the August issue of CQ, which is on its way to readers now, both in print and digital form. Digital edition should be online August 1st, and the print issue is in the mail. And we have our Summer Madness promotion going on right now for either new or renewed subscriptions. If you sign up during the promotion, you will get an extra issue for every year you sign up for. So you get 13 issues instead of 12, 25 instead of 24, etc. Good opportunity to take advantage of that special and get some extra issues on your subscription. And all the details on that, of course, are on our website at www.cq-amateur-radio.com. And that's a look at August CQ coming up this week.
This is great, and a lot of things you talked about tonight kind of fall right into what we had planned to talk about on the show tonight. So it's kind of great they overlap. Rich, I know it's hot there, and you turned your fan off so we wouldn't hear the noise. You're welcome to stay on the show with Martin and myself and talk tonight, or if you get hot and sweaty, you need to leave, just go ahead and leave, okay?
I would love to stick around, but it is awfully uncomfortable here, so I need to go find some air conditioning, which I would be in, except that the air conditioner is noisier than the fan. So.
Yeah, well, I understand. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming out tonight and being on the show with us. And we'll see you in a couple weeks down in Huntsville. It's going to be great down there. And we want to thank you. CQ has donated a few magazine subscriptions as prizes. We've been giving them out nearly every time we have. Hambot always gives out CQ subscriptions. So thank you so much. And there will be some lucky CQ winners.
Very good. Good night, everybody. And if you're going to be at Huntsville, look forward to seeing you there. 73.
All right, 73.
Okay.
All right.
Good. Okay.
All
Good
right.
To see you.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. You know, hey, people have asked me, Martin, about, you know, they know I'm trying to get my satellite system set back up, and I've had a little problems with it, but just I want to take about 3 minutes to just let people know. They asked about it on the net today. So I've got a little minute video here. I'll kind of show you what I'm doing. I set up a separate satellite station kind of over on my workbench. I took some old test equipment off there that I haven't used in many years. In fact, if you look behind me right here, you see this test equipment right there. That's some military surplus signal generators. I haven't used them in a million years, so I'm getting rid of those, and I've set me up a satellite station right here. So here's just one little contact. This is an FM bird. You'll see the program I'm using. It's called SAT PC32, and the little circle you see on there will actually be the footprint of the satellite. You'll see it moving across the United States. The little plus is where I am, and I manually move the antenna both azimuth and elevation. The program actually does all the other work on the radio. It changes the receive frequency and the transmit frequency for Doppler shift. I don't have to worry about that. If it's a sideband bird, it puts it in the proper sideband. It does all those kind of things. So just a quick little 1 minute video, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, as you can see right here, this is the footprint of the satellite. We're just about out of it. It's almost at the horizon right now. So that was an FM bird. It wasn't too good. Sometimes the FM birds don't sound that great, but we'll keep playing. All right, so that was kind of where I am with my satellite stuff now, Martin. I'm kind of getting it hooked back up. And,
that looks very interesting.
That was one of the FM birds, and that TS2000 is really built as a satellite radio. It does VHF and UHF, and it's full duplex. And one of the things you want on satellite is to be able to hear yourself come back. You may have heard somebody whistling in here. You probably heard them going, well, they were listening for themselves and on top of somebody. But so that's why most people want a handy-talkie with a dual receiver and full duplex. So you can hear yourself coming back in. So if you can't hear yourself come back, you're not getting into the satellite. So it's real easy to work the FM satellites. That was one of the FM satellites. You can do it with a handy-talkie. The sideband satellites are much more difficult, I think, to work. It requires more equipment. For instance, it requires my transceiver, my VHF UHF transceiver there. It needs to be full duplex. Most of these transceivers out there aren't full duplex, so that makes it difficult. But the TS2000 is built for satellite. It's full duplex. And let's see, just quickly, just the antenna system I use, nothing fancy. There it is in the garage, and we were building the mount. It's just a 2 meter and a 440 antenna on an azimuth and elevation rotor, the two rotors you saw me working. Now I did swap that 5-element 2 meter beam out right there with one a little longer. That 2 meter beam there only gave me about 5 to 7 dB, I think. And let's see, I should have another picture of the antenna I put on there. There it is. That you can see that one's a little longer. Martin, that's one of your antennas.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a
Cushcraft.
Cushcraft or what is it, high gain? I'm not sure. You think that's Cushcraft?
Yeah.
I don't
Looks
know.
like a Cushcraft.
But you can see
Yeah,
it's
that's
quite long, and the reason I went with that, I swapped out that. Now that 5-element 2 meter beam used to always work great, but I've got quite a long run of coax, so I wanted a little bit more gain at the antenna. So this antenna here has around 12 or 13 dB versus the 7 that I had with that shorter antenna. So you can see there's the let's see, we'll get to that in a minute. There's the long antenna up on the rotor, and that's Walter over there doing some rotor settings there, and it's pretty simple. You just aim now this program will actually steer the rotor, but I do mine manually. I don't have a rotor set up that we could steer with the program. Now we have Glenn Popel in the room, and he does all this Arduino stuff, and I know Glenn makes these little Arduino rotor interfaces. So Glenn Popel, next time you're on the show, you need to bring me a rotor interface where I can control the satellite antennas from the program there. There they are again. And there's another shot of it. So you can see, not a whole lot there. And you know what? They don't have to be high, because, hey, there's not a big difference between 5 feet off the ground and 20 feet off the ground. You're still 200,000 miles away. Well, that's from the moon, if we try to do any moon. But yeah, the low orbit satellites, I think they're up somewhere in the 100 to 200 mile, if I'm not mistaken. So again, height above ground doesn't make a lot of difference. My problem is I have a lot of trees here that I have to go through, so I expect wintertime it's going to get better as the leaves fall off the trees. So Martin, that's one thing that I'm kind of involved in there, and I got one more thing before we jump into our other thing. And Martin, that is, I ran into some more interference the other day on my radio and my HF rig, and a few months ago, I had these regular interference spikes on my band scope, and I turned off. I put my radio on a battery. I turned off the breakers in the house, and it went away. So I started flipping them on breakers, and I said, "Oh, it's coming from my shop." So I went out there and I found a cheap a battery charger that was actually causing spikes on my radio here. Interference on my radio at the other end of the house. I unplugged the battery charger and the interference away. But guess what? This week I had some similar issues where every 30 kcs I saw a signal every 30 kcs 7190, 7160, 7130. And I did flip off the breaker here in the house, and guess what? It didn't go away. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to handle this if it didn't go away. Now, I did realize and remember, when I moved to this house, I did put a UPS system, a big UPS system out in the garage, and I ran Romex and I ran some receptacles in different rooms, for my UPS, for things like the internet modems and my computers and things like that. I didn't turn that off, but I just kind of felt like maybe it wasn't the UPS. Well, the next day, I was seeing those signals on there again, every 30 kilohertz. So I got a piece of test equipment that many of you may have, and that's it right there. It's a little AEM sideband. It's a shortwave receiver. You can also check for interference with a handy talkie. Put it on an AM band and put it in AM. But the thing about this interference I was getting, you can actually see it on frequencies. It wasn't a full spectrum of just noise. It was very specific locations on the band. So I put this little receiver on 7290, and I could see the S meter here, and I flipped it over to sideband, and I could hear the tone. And, it was whistling at me, and I was walking around, and I couldn't find anything in the house. So I thought, well, it's going to be at the neighbor's house, and this is going to be a tough one. I'll have to live with the interference forever. So I walk outside and go around my house with this, thinking that as I get closer to my neighbor near my ham shack, it's going to get louder. There was no interference out there. So I came back in the house, I took this little thing, and I walked into my shack, walked over to my operating position, and it was getting louder and louder. And I stuck it over by a laptop, and it got really loud. And I stuck it by the Ethernet cable, and it got real loud. And I said, this is coming through the Ethernet cable. So I go back in the other room where my switch is. I've got a gig switch in there. I unplug the Ethernet cable, and my interference goes away. So this little, just a little radio like this, a lot of times will help you isolate and find trouble like that. Martin, I think
So
you guys even make don't you make some type of receiver with a little dish for hunting interference?
Well, we do. We make 3 items. One is a VHF AM radio with a dipole antenna. And another version of that has a Yagi built in, and you can pinpoint it by pointing the Yagi. And then we make an ultrasonic audio receiver that can locate noisy insulators on power poles. Just pinpoints it right to the insulator. When you found your interference, what did you do? Did you put some filtering on the Ethernet cable?
Here's the interesting thing. I went straight to the gig switch, and I've got many things plugged in, but seems like it was on this one cable. I unplugged it and it stopped. And I plugged it in. I heard it come back on, and I kind of wiggled the cable a little bit, and I heard the signal kind of popping up and down a little. But I unplugged it and I plugged it back in, and it actually went away. So I don't know if there was some type just really bad connection or something like that, maybe, causing it. But it's all cabled. It's cabled back up now and working. I thought I was going to have to put some ferrites or something on it,
Might have been the shield that's not connected well on the cable.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. My producer just came in and gave me this dirty look. I don't know. She looked over at the monitor on the wall. Maybe it was when I was trying to adjust my picture in there, and she, I was not adjusted well. But anyway, that's what our producers are for. Well, hey, Martin, man, let's do 2 things. Let's break this up into 2 pieces. I want to talk about HOA antennas, but I want to talk just 5 minutes. I can't resist talking with you for 5 minutes about ham radio, the good old days. Now, we're probably going to put some people to sleep here. We're probably going to have some people leave us, but that's okay because we had fun, didn't we?
Oh, we had lots of fun with simple, inexpensive radios that you could build yourself, and low power, and you didn't even need a microphone.
Yeah, in fact, we couldn't even use a microphone our first year, I mean,
That's right. That's
yeah.
right. We only had, I forgot now, 1 year to upgrade.
That's right.
If we didn't upgrade, we were out of business.
Yeah. Don't upgrade, you can't get that license back. It was a one-time shot. But, most everybody, I think, back then that got that novice license, they didn't wait a year to get the general. Within 6 months, most people had probably upgraded. How long did it take you to upgrade?
Not very long, a few months. I had gotten my novice license, but I didn't have a radio for several months, and I finally got on and worked hard to get my general. Taking the general class license, it was back then, it was the old version of the VEC. It was a conditional class.
Oh, okay.
A ham would give you that exam because you lived too far away from the FCC.
Yeah, I
Up
forget
at the FCC to take the
I forget what that
test.
distance was. Now, I had to come to Memphis to the FCC to take mine. And I lived maybe 35 miles from Memphis. Do you remember what the distance was? Something like 100 miles or something? Or?
Well, I don't remember it exactly, but I know that I had to go to New Orleans, which was 300 miles
Oh, yeah.
from where I lived. So,
Yeah. Well, I got my license. Yeah, I got my license, built that transmitter up, got on, and my dad, which was a great supporter, and they bought me my first rigs and all that stuff. But when he found out I was on code, he says, "Code? What's that good for?" But that was a stepping stone for us. We knew that we weren't going to be there very long.
Well, I tell you, code, you could work just about anybody with low power.
Yeah, you really could. And hey, I think my biggest DX back then might have been Bermuda. What about yours?
Well, I don't remember, but it wasn't that far.
Yeah.
But back then we were crystal controlled. You had one frequency or however many crystals that you had, and you usually couldn't afford very many crystals, so you were stuck on one frequency. And you would call CQ, and you would tune around the band to see if anybody called you back, or you would answer someone. Well,
might
have been way off from where you were.
You'd be on frequency A, and they'd be on frequency B. You just tune up. But of course, our band wasn't that big, to tune around in, so we could usually find somebody,
Yeah.
And we would swap crystals. Hey, let me, I've used this crystal long. We'd swap crystals and have a new frequency.
Yeah, or you could take the crystal apart and take a pencil lead and rub on it, and that'll lower the frequency.
Yeah, now I never did any of that. I understand you could lower the frequency, and I think you could raise the frequency maybe by using toothpaste. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. You could just kind of grind a little bit of it off. You could either raise the frequency or the crystal would quit working.
Yeah. I've even seen some crystals where people put a little bolt in there and a little nut, and a little knob on them, where you could actually squeeze that. You could squeeze that crystal in there, and it's kind of like a VFO, but it was a crystal.
Yeah.
Well,
they made a holder like that.
Did they?
A crystal holder.
That was
had a
really
knob on
interesting.
it. You could just tighten the contact on it. There was a little spring that pushed up against the crystal to make contact. And you can shift the frequency a little bit.
Well, I had a guy one time. He back then there wasn't an extra; it was general class. But he was in Kentucky. I think his call was W4 EBG. I think he must have been running about 10,000 watts. He was the loudest guy.
Paducah, Kentucky.
What, Paducah? Maybe. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I think I've heard.
I think his name was Con, C-O-N, if I remember correctly. Do you remember that?
I can't remember the exact name, but I used to hear a guy from Paducah.
Yeah.
All
I
the
think
time,
that
yeah.
was him, and I'd call
Yeah.
CQ and Morse code, probably 6, 7, 8 words a minute, down an novice band. And one day, he answered. Of course, he was up in a phone band. In fact, I think I heard him, and he said he was listening for novices to call him. So I called him. So, but we were working real split. I was down in a novice band CW, and he was up in the phone band. So I called him, and he answered me, and he told me I sounded like a piccolo. I'm not sure what that means, but I'm sure he was trying to use a derogatory term with my little novice signal.
But he was talking to you.
Yeah, he was
voice.
talking to me on his, kilowatt AM
That's it.
plate modulated, transmitter out of Paducah, Kentucky. I think I only did that once or twice.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd be on different frequencies and talk. You just tune a band till you find somebody that's answering you back, and that was fun.
But we used to have these receivers that just barely worked. I mean, it was a real feat just to make a contact.
Well, I think I've told you this. I mentioned on a show last night. Martin, see that radio right there?
Yeah.
That Westinghouse.
Westinghouse.
That's a Westinghouse radio. It's got a shortwave
Wow.
band on it from 2 to 7 megahertz. If you look at the center there, you'll see a little red spot about 1/4 of an inch, 3.5 to 4.
Yeah.
Well, the novice band would be about 1 millimeter inside that.
Yeah.
That receiver, I made my very first contact on that receiver, and it didn't even have a BFO in it.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I
How'd you
had
do
a signal generator beating against it to get a beat tone, But there had been a ham that kind of moved in locally, and he called me, and boy, I tell you, I didn't copy hardly a thing he said, but that was my first receiver right there. But I got started as a shortwave listener, Martin, on a radio, something like that right there. That's what got me going right there.
Man, I remember those. I had one of those right outside my office. Somebody just recently gave me.
I don't know what happened to my stuff. How does stuff that big disappear, man?
I don't know, but you can have the one I have across my hallway.
Well, I probably wouldn't have a place to put it, but thank you anyway. But I tell you, that is a great receiver, man. I mean, that is a piece of history right there.
We all used to sit and listen to stories like The Lone Ranger. That was our TV set. We used to listen to all those programs.
Yeah.
But the receiver that I had when I first started was a Night Kit regenerative receiver. It was an AC/DC 2-tube receiver.
Now let's
And
talk
you
about how bad it was back in the old days. That was your first receiver. Did you ever make a contact with it?
I never made a contact with that.
Yeah.
It was a shortwave receiver for shortwave listening, so it didn't have very much of a band spread, and you had to tune it in and leave your hand on the tuning knob.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
if you moved your hand away, the station would disappear. It would drift out, and you couldn't hear it anymore. And the other problem was when you transmitted, it blocked. And when you quit transmitting, it was off frequency, and you couldn't hear who you were talking to.
Man.
But that wasn't bad. Those were the good days.
Hey, that was the good old days.
That's what you remember.
That was the good old days, and we made contacts, and just real quick, and we'll finish this segment up. Then I want to move on in just a second to our antenna deal we're going to talk about. But let's see. I've got some pictures here if I can. This is typical. This is typical stations like we had back in the '60s.
That's a typical rich kid station.
Yeah, a rich kid station there. Really, actually, mine looked a little more like this. I was a little better off, but that's a. I imagine yours probably looked like that.
I didn't have that fancy receiver. What kind of receiver is that? It's like a Hammerlin.
I don't know. It's got a. a Hammerlin had a Super Pro SP600 that had 2 dials, but I don't think that's an SP600. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I'm not sure what that is right there.
It looks like you've got an ARC 5 for a
Let's see.
VFO
Uh,
right in
yeah,
the middle.
yeah, it is. And back then we would take this military stuff, which was a lot of it, man, and that's what we had to do ham radio with. So that's a typical station.
Yeah.
Look how
Is that
happy. Now look how happy he is there. Look at that microphone. Now you don't see any computer
man.
there. There's no internet. There's no QRZ spots. I mean, there's nothing going on there, man.
Was that that was your home built transmitter on the
Yeah,
right?
it looks like it, and it looks like he did a great
Yeah.
job right there.
Yeah.
Now here's your expensive one right here.
Wow. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
super deluxe
Yeah.
station.
Looks
there.
like some kind of homebrew tuner on top of that Johnson
Yeah.
transmitter there. I see a coil and a capacitor,
Yeah.
and so that's that's interesting. Running his wires right out the window there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
D104 microphone on the.
Oh yeah.
I guess that's a.
And he's got a key there, and it looks like what's that meter right near the key? Is that like a grid diff oscillator or something? Or
Well, that looks like one of the Jones SWR meters.
oh really?
The meter part of it. Yeah.
Could be.
And-
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Let's see let's take another picture too. Let's see. Well, we've already looked at that one. Now look how happy how happy
Oh, man,
we
look
were.
at that.
That's how happy
looks-
we were back then. Did you ever end up with anything in a 19-inch rack? I ended up with a double wide, I think 4 foot tall double rack, with stuff rack mounted.
Yeah. No, I didn't have that much stuff. That's
Yeah.
That's a pretty heavy rack.
Yeah.
What is that Is that a Centra Electronics or Collins transmitter right in the middle?
On the bottom,
behind
the
the
dark one,
microphone.
the black one.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
And-
Collins.
Collins. Okay,
Yeah.
looks like the Heath kit and to the left and above
Yeah,
the
and
transmitter. It looks like a sideband.
look at
slicer
the
from Heath kit.
look at the speaker up on the top there in the center. A speaker's bigger than our radios today.
Oh yeah, you could hear something. From
But
that.
I'm sure it sounded good. So there we go. That's a picture, man. That's when I upgraded right there. I got me a receiver. That's and the little circle there is the frequency. That's the crystal, Martin. So
Okay, is that you?
yeah, that's me right there. That's me right there,
Wow.
man. And look at there.
Yeah.
I've got a door. I got a door for a table with a 2x4.
Oh, I see that.
2x4.
I see the hinge.
Yeah, 2x4 legs on it. I've got I don't know. I'm not sure what all I got there. But anyway, I got
You got
that T150 in the center. That was 80 through 6 meters, 150
Would-
watts. When you got your general, you
would-
could run 150 watts, and it had a VFO in it, which
VF
was really
VFO,
cool.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, when I held the novice, you could also hold the tech at the same time. And I was able to work voice on 6 meters and CW on the novice bands. And then when I upgraded, of course, you could operate anywhere. But yeah, that was me there. Well, look, hey, let's talk a little about your beginning, man. You let's see. Let me see if I can find something here on you.
I don't think I ever took a picture of my station.
Yeah. Well,
But
I
see
seem to be
that
I
VF
seem to be missing some pictures, I think. Yeah, I'm missing some pictures here. So hey, let's talk about that's your first ham shack right there.
That's it. Yeah, up above it in the ceiling, in the attic. You had to climb up.
You had your station. You had your station in the attic. I bet it was hot up there down in Mississippi.
It was hot. It was hot. There was we didn't have a fan until much later. So and we didn't have a floor up there in the attic. but I took some, I think it was a bread shelf. It's a shelf that you put the bread on to sell in the store. Made a table out of that, and put some planks down where I wouldn't fall through the ceiling, and ran TV twin lead, 300 ohm twin lead out the attic. What do you call it?
Out the little louver there for the
Yeah,
ventilation
yeah.
coming in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Doing
and
that.
hey, I hate walking around attics. You ever, your foot goes through the ceiling, you get in trouble now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that'd be that. So you really had it rough there to have your first ham shack in the attic with no floor.
Well, back then you had to move your antenna from your transmitter to your receiver.
Yeah.
And I did it with an alligator clip.
Oh,
And
that's
sometimes I would forget to move the antenna and transmit,
cool. Oh well.
and you had to switch your receiver from transmit to receive. There was a bunch of stuff you had to do just to be able to hear the station you had contacted. But it was fun. I mean, you learned a lot of stuff.
What kind of antenna did you have at that place? Did you have some type dipole with that twin
Well, the
lead?
first antenna that I had to just kind of tack it onto the eave. But eventually, I put up an extended double zep with wire that was unwound from an electrodynamic speaker. Back then we didn't have good magnets, and they used to have to make an electromagnet, which was a piece of iron with a lot of wire wound around it. And I used to get these old radios and unwind the wire so I could use it for an antenna. But the problem was that was soft drawn wire, and when you put it up, it would slowly sag and eventually just break. And I used to think there was some neighbor that was breaking my antenna every few weeks.
Well, did you back then we could call some TV interference for sure, but you were probably remotely isolated away from most people with TV. So did you have any TV problems?
Well, we had our own TV.
Oh yeah.
6 meters was right on the channel 2 back then.
Oh yeah. Well, look, hey, I found a couple pictures here. This takes us way back, man. Way back. Look at there. Who's that?
Man.
Who is that?
Man, that was me, man. That goes way back.
There you go. That's you right there, isn't it?
That's me and my brother on the left, and that's my sister. She was 22 years older than me.
Oh man.
And I think that was my nephew. He was only 4 years younger than I am.
Yeah.
He was the one who drew that picture at the store.
Oh, okay. That's cool. And some
that
people
must have been
were
in Greenville, Mississippi.
Yeah, people are already in the chat room talking about the coal oil story, the kerosene pump out front. You did a little bit of everything at that store. How old were you when you were working in that store?
Ever since I can remember, I think my father moved there. We always lived in the Mississippi Delta around Greenville, Rolling Fork, but we moved to Hollandale when I was about 4 years old, and the only 2 places I've ever lived was Hollandale and Starkville, Mississippi.
I think my mom was raised in Hollandale, in that area. Y'all
Really?
were probably very close down there.
Wow.
I'll need to find out more about that, but wow.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
But talking about the kerosene, the coal oil pump, we used to take a gallon jug. People would come in and buy coal oil, kerosene. That pump is just to the right of the door, and you would pump a gallon jug full of coal oil, and they would take it and use it for their coal oil lamp. That's what they used for light back then.
Yeah. Now, does that pump? I've seen both, I think, but that pump, you probably had a crank you turned, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one showed one that you pumped up and down, but it really was a crank.
Yeah.
And you would just crank it. And if you let that gallon jug slip down to where the nozzle would be even with the mouth of the jug,
Yeah.
you would get sprayed all over.
Well, you'd get a little
with coal
oil on you, and then you'd go back in the store because you can't change clothes every time you have a little accident, you know.
Oh no, you go back in the store and wait on.
Let's talk about this quick story, and then we're gonna get in our next segment. This is so much fun, man, talking about this. You here you are. You're probably what, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10, and you're cutting meat in the meat department. And you told me that you had some meat there that you cut that was so big you couldn't even pick it up, and you drug it down the floor.
That's right, big 4/4 of beef. I mean, they were bigger than I was. I couldn't pick it up, and I just dragged it across the floor.
Well,
but you know, but here's another interesting story. You might not want to hear about the cotton choppers.
No, I want to hear. Let's hear about the cotton choppers.
Well, you know, back then cotton was king, and cotton choppers would come in and buy lunch, and they would order. One of their favorite lunches was like 15 cents worth of cheese, hoop cheese, and a package of crackers and an RC cola, and they would order 15 cents worth, and we had to cut it by hand. Well, you know, you couldn't always cut exactly 15 cents worth.
Well, you don't want to waste it either.
No, I would ask the customers, is 17 cents okay? And they always would say, no, I want 15 cents worth. So I just take a bite off the cheese.
That's right, man. That's a great story, man. Great story there. All right, Martin, stand by a minute, Martin. We'll be right back, and we want to talk about some HOA stuff coming up here in just a minute. So we'll be back in just a minute here. Heard it, worked it, logged it. It's time to get the transceiver that is best suited for your lifestyle. ICOM offers a variety of high-performance and innovative products. The IC7610 is the SDR every ham wants. This high-performance SDR has the ability to pick out the faintest of signals, even in the presence of stronger adjacent signals. It's a direct sampling software-defined radio that will change the world's definition of an SDR transceiver. It has RF direct sampling, an independent dual receiver, and dual digit select. The IC7300 is changing the way entry-level HF is designed. This high-performance, innovative HF transceiver with a compact design will far exceed your expectations. It has RF direct sampling, 15 discrete bandpass filters, a large color touchscreen, real-time spectrum scope, and an SD memory card slot. Visit www.icomamerica.com/amateur for more information on ICOM radios.
LDG Electronics provides state-of-the-art antenna tuners for every amateur need. From QRP to QRO, fixed stations, portable and remote, an LDG tuner will match your radio to your antenna using our lightning-fast, proprietary tuning algorithms. LDG is a family-owned and operated company dedicated to bringing innovative, quality products to the amateur market. All LDG products carry a full 2-year warranty that is fully transferable. Support is only a phone call or email away. We're always here to help you. Visit us on the web at ldgelectronics.com.
All right, we're back with Martin F. Jew, K5FLU.
That's funny looking underwears.
Funny looking underwear. They were talking. They know, the people in the chat room know a lot about you, Martin. They know they were putting in there what your middle name was. They said your middle name was Fun, and that's right, isn't it?
That's right. That is my middle name.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I want to talk about is, it's on my mind right now. My son Chris, he's in the chat room. AC5CM. He just moved to Texas and left us here. I feel so sad that my son has moved so many miles away, but hey, I think we'll all make it okay. He's an adult, and we'll survive. We'll still get to see each other and talk to each other. But he's moving into an HOA, and we've scouted it out. I've got, he's sent me pictures, and we've talked about different possibilities for antennas. So tonight I want to talk a little about antennas for HOA that'll get a guy on HF. And we'll open the phone lines too in a few minutes, because there's some people that check into our net here from Texas that are actually their antennas are actually a loop that's on top of their fence, 5 feet off the ground, and they do great. But I want to talk about some possibilities. Now, I know when you travel and you go to a hotel, you operate portable out of a hotel room. What do you normally do in a hotel room?
Well, one of the things I like to do was to use a loop antenna. I mean, a real loop, HF loop, small high efficiency loop.
Now, is this just a piece of wire?
Just a piece of wire. You don't need a ground or anything.
Okay.
And you could put it on the window frame, you loop it around the door, just form some kind of a crude loop. It doesn't have to be square or round. Just make it into something that will loop around.
Yeah.
And I had designed a loop tuner and made it into a series of products, and it has a very low loss butterfly capacitor with no rotating contacts, and another variable capacitor to match the impedance. And you can work all over with a small antenna like that. The only problem with operating from a hotel with an antenna inside is all the noise that's been generated from within the hotel. But I've done other things like run a wire outside or use a vertical antenna. But the one that really worked good was the loop antenna. Especially if you went to like a bed and breakfast that wasn't a big building or anything. But if you are in a HOA situation, the one thing that you should know is that just about any thing that you use for an antenna will radiate just about everything that you put into it. I mean, the efficiency is on the order of 98% of what you put into it. But the problem is getting the power into that antenna. And that's where all your losses are.
So I guess your loop basically would be just a piece of wire. And if you had a double window or a balcony or, the balcony doors or something, I guess you could actually tape it to the window, I guess, and go around it and down. And you might have a loop that's 6 foot wide and maybe 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
And just tune that
right against the wall.
And tune that up. And
that works great.
You didn't have any issues with a loop like that. I guess it's balanced or something. Did you have any issues with RFI or anything like that? No ground or anything?
Well, you don't need a ground when you use a loop like that, and it's radiating. So if you overload something, you'll have some problem with some RFI, but that's not a problem that you have yourself. But you give that problem to someone else.
Oh yeah. Well, one of the things we're looking at in his place, of course, Chris will have probably a single window, so it's not a big window to put a big loop in. I know people do put loops inside the building, inside the room, just on the walls and stuff. I'd prefer to try to get it closer to a window or outside myself, but RF will go through a wall, particularly if it's wood wall or something like that.
Well, when I was developing our loop antenna, this is like 25 years ago, I had a loop that was leaning against the back of the couch in my house running QRP. This was back when propagation was good. And I was working into Europe using like 5 watts. So, I mean, it radiates. If you go back to around 1968 and look through the QST magazine, you can see that was when loops became known. It was, as far as I remember, it was first used by the military. And there was an article, it seemed like it wasn't an article, but it was like letters to the editor. And this issue was like, I forgot now, something like 1948, really old. And this guy had built a horizontal loop on a piece of crosswood. And he was explaining how it worked, and I think he gave some equations. And it was pretty fascinating to read about back then.
Well, I think what we're going to try to do is use a very small wire, maybe something like, it's wire wrap wire. I've got rolls and rolls of it. We take a black insulated, I don't know, 22, 24 gauge. I mean, small, maybe smaller, I don't know. And if he can come out that window with it and go over the top of the house, over the shingles, and just get it over the top of the house and even across to the side and let it hang a little, our thought is to tune it with an auto tuner there inside at the window. Now he's on the second floor. No, there's not going to be any ground because his ground will be longer. His ground will be a 15-meter antenna, basically at a quarter wave. So, I know and I've read and I've studied that the counterpoise a lot of times works just as well as a ground or a ground rod in the ground, because you can actually cut them actually like a quarter wave or something, and people actually put these counterpoise under the carpet or around the wall. So I think our plan would be to put a wire over the roof that maybe nobody can see. It's going to be so small nobody can see it. Put some counterpoise in his room there around the wall boards, and take that auto tuner and tune it. And I've had a lot of experience with playing with auto tuners, and you can just about tune anything up with it. In fact, here's something right here I tuned up with an auto tuner here at my other house. Look at, you see that right there. Now, let me tell you guys, I made a contact. My rig was in my house, and I made a contact from Memphis to Washington State, and I talking to a guy. Basically, I had taken a little auto tuner and I had hooked it to the bumper of my El Camino. Because, hey, look, we got 4 insulators there holding it off the ground.
Oh, yeah.
So I ran the coax out. We, of course, hooked the ground out there, and then we hooked the antenna terminal of the auto tuner on the El Camino. And the guy gave me a great signal report from Washington State. He told me my mobile was sounding good. And I explained to him, I said, no, you don't understand. I'm not mobile. I'm using the mobile for the antenna. So
that's funny.
I have found that, man, it is so easy with an auto tuner to tune a wire, to tune screens, to tune cars, anything, So
yeah, what did you use for a ground?
Well, I had a ground system there in the backyard where I actually had ground rods, and I had some buried radios for my other antenna systems, and I just connected to that ground there. So it might have been cheating a little bit, although the radiating part of it, the antenna connector, was on the truck there.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think, Martin, about just an invisible wire over a roof? If you can get it, 40, 50, 30, 40, 50 feet long, don't you think it would work?
That'd work. Like I was saying, as long as you can get power into anything, it's going to radiate it. And that's the only problem is the losses in the matching network, and in this case it would be the auto tuner. But you can make a simple manual tuner with a coil
Yep.
and a variable capacitor, and you can make the coil variable with a piece of wire and an alligator clip, and
Yeah,
just
and
using that for simple L network.
Yeah, I've done that several times. I've got a couple matching devices out there, but one thing that intrigued me too. You've got another antenna, an auto antenna tuner, in your company there that actually it has a display on the front, and it displays the inductance and the capacitance when that thing tunes. And the nice thing about it is, and you stated in the write-up, is that, hey, once that thing tunes perfect, you see the inductance is so many millihenries and the capacitance is so many picofarad. You can take those two values and just build that little L network you're talking about and replace that tuner.
Yeah.
So
in the AWRL handbook, there is a program that's called Transmission Lines for Windows, and it comes with the antenna book, maybe the handbook, and if you can measure the impedance of your antenna, which you can do with an antenna analyzer, and just plug it into
Welcome.
that.
This service is provided by free conference
hang
call.
on a second. I'm sorry. I was getting the phone lines set up.
Yeah,
in the handbook, there's information about calculating the LC network.
Yeah, it's a program.
Yeah.
TLW, Transmission Lines for Windows. And all you have to do is put the resistive part of the antenna and the reactive part of the antenna into the program, and it will calculate the L and the C and the configuration that you need for L network, and it will also do it for a Pi network and also for a T network.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can build your own tuner. That's really the fun of it, just building the stuff and seeing how it works.
Well, in particular, if you're trying to match a low impedance or a high impedance, all you got to do on that L network is reverse it, I believe.
Yeah.
And that will tune either a high impedance or a low impedance. So.
Yeah, if you use a wire with an alligator clip, you just unclip it and clip it to the other side.
Oh yeah. Hey, I put the phone number up there if people want to call in. Again, we have phone lines in 65 countries. We have toll-free lines in 65 countries. Occasionally, we'll get a call from Australia or somewhere like that. But
I can't see the whole phone number up there.
You say you can't see
it.
You can't see it on your end. Okay, I can.
I see the first 6 numbers.
The first 6. Let's see. The first 6. Did they help any?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's up there now.
I guess that's big enough. Let's see. Let's see if it's any better.
That's fine.
Yeah, that might. Well, that doesn't look better. So let me go back to the other one. Hey guys, if you want to call in, and hey, maybe our friend down in Texas that's using the antenna that's basically hidden. It's basically hidden on his fence. He just got it tacked right around the fence, and he's got him a loop out there. He checks in the net on 40 meters every Tuesday. Man, you will make contacts, and I think when the bands start opening up, you'll make DX contacts with it too.
Yeah. Well, most of it depends on the propagation.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been very good for us, but there have been years where propagation were incredible. That's pretty good. You're in the 65 countries.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we've got the phone line open, 712-775-7270. Call that number, and you'll have to put the code in. The code is 407051#. If you're international, if you go to on our website, go up to the top where it says contact, up there on our menu where it says contact, and click on that. over on the left side, you'll see phone numbers to dial into the show, and you should be able to find your phone number, whether you're in, Saudi Arabia or Australia or wherever. Just pick the proper number and give us a call. So
you can call about anything.
Yeah, call about anything. It doesn't have to be about tuners, but let's just call and let's just talk a little bit here. I'm really hoping that soon I can get Chris on the air down there. He's been off the air for a few years, in an apartment here, and now he's moving and kind of in a little restricted area. But I think we're going to get him back on, and maybe he'll.
Is he in Austin?
He's moved down to Austin. Yes. You know anybody down there?
Yeah, my nephew is there.
All right.
A bunch of kinfolks is there.
You got kinfolks there. Okay.
Yeah, I can get the number to you. And
all right. Well, that'd be cool. Now, I guess they haven't really no interest in ham radio.
No, but one of my nephew used to work in international sales for us here while he was going to school at Mississippi State.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a banker out there.
Okay. Well, if Chris needs to borrow any money, he knows where to go.
Yeah, he'll loan it to him.
All right, let's see. Hey, I think we got a phone call. I hadn't been listening, so let me turn the phone up a little bit. Yeah, we got a call. Who's on the phone?
Tom, can you hear me?
I hear you. Who we
Russ.
got? Russ. Hey, Russ.
KG0BK. Hi.
Hey, Russ.
Hey, Martin, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
On that loop, is that any particular length, like a half wave loop that works the best, or what works the best?
Needs to be something
Hi, dear.
smaller than a quarter wave.
Yeah, I would think just smaller or something random. You're not going to get a quarter wave. You're not going to get a quarter wave stretched out around a window. It's going to be much shorter.
Yeah, just
okay.
about
Well, I was just curious about that. Figured you could tune it, but I didn't know if you were talking quarter wave or half wave. So I wanted to clarify that. And Tom, the audio coming back on the phone is really hot.
Oh, is it? Okay, let me check this again. It seems that Microsoft keeps changing things on me here. Levels. You're right. Okay. I bet that sounds better, doesn't it?
That sounds absolutely perfect. That's
and you know what?
5 by 8, 9 plus copy.
I set that level right before the call. It's setting at about 10%. And Microsoft, during this time, Microsoft has moved it up to 100%. Who knows?
Okay.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's all I've got tonight. Good show, and enjoyed all the old-time stuff, and been there, done that a few times. Thanks for putting that one on. And Martin, thanks for your help.
Russ.
Oh, you know what? We ought to just have a show, Martin and Russ. We ought to just have a show one day, and like a Saturday morning, come on and just stay on all day and talk about the old days. Us old.
We could almost do that, but I need to sell Martin some ads though first, don't I?
I don't know. Hey, us old codgers, probably the people would stop tuning in. But hey, I guess that's I love it, man. I love it.
Hey, Russ.
I figured we could fire up the old ham, not the old ham, but the old pirate station and sell Martin's Mads for $1. See you later, Tom. Thanks for having me in.
All right, we'll see you. All right, Martin. Bill wants to know, Austin, is that Little Pete down there?
No, Little Pete's up in Memphis.
He's in Memphis, right? Yeah.
Pete.
Yeah, he's up in Memphis.
Yeah, this is a different nephew.
Oh, okay. All right, let's see. We had, I think we still got somebody else on the phone. Let me see who we got. Area code 817 number. Who's on the phone?
Hey, Tom, it's Anthony, KG5JPU from Benbrook, Texas. How are you?
Hey, Anthony. Fine, man. Now, you the guys got that antenna on the fence, right?
Yes, it's 80 down to 10 off-center fed antenna that was custom made by wire. And it goes from the front of my house, or actually on the side of my house, where the fence extends out between my two houses, between my house and my neighbor's house. Then it goes into the backyard. It goes along to the end of the fence line, and then it goes across 90 degree about halfway down the back of my yard. You know, and it goes down, like, it drops down maybe a section or two down to 6 feet, but it's basically the majority of it is up to 8 feet. And it's basically below a quarter wave, and I'm operating my ICOM 7410 on 100 watts, basically in a wire, and it tunes using the internal tuner on the radio down to one to one.
Or now you're using an off-center
That's
fed
impressive.
yes. on your fence. I thought it was a loop around.
Yes.
I've always thought about running.
Originally, I had a dipole, a 40-meter dipole antenna that was given to me with borrowing, and it was what type of antenna was it? It was the not a wire type dipole, but it was the coax type. Okay, and that thing was great.
Yeah.
Right, and then I got Martin's MFJ 40 down to 10 end-fed antenna. The MFJ, I think it was a 1984 HP, the 600, 800 watt antenna. You know the one I'm talking about, Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know
And then I was using that one, okay, and I was basically working great, you know, with people 40,000 feet in the air flying, you know, an aeronautical mobile, where I was hitting people from California, Canada, you know, across the country and stuff like that on 100 watts.
So Martin, that end-fed antenna, does it use something like a 9-to-1 balun, or I've seen some that are like 30 or 40 in one, you know?
Yeah, no, there's a balun in there to match it.
Yeah.
But there's also a RF choke to keep the RF from coming back to the radio built into it. Yeah. So
So Anthony.
So then after that, I had to return that antenna back to you, Martin, because it went bad. I had an issue with it, and I got a replacement one, okay, which I was going to put back up anyway. I compared the one that I'm using now because I'm visually impaired. I'm somewhat blind, okay, and I had a friend of mine from the amateur radio club that I belong to. He came and he strung up from cutting wire. He put up a 40 and a 20 single fed dipole on my fence in the meantime, and that was working great on 40 meters as well as 20 meters, and I even operated on 15 meters as well with that antenna. And then when they came by and made my 80 down to 10 off center fed antenna, which would be a lot better for me in a sense, that was even working better. And I'm working basically below a quarter wave on 100 watts and 8 foot off my fence. And I can communicate with somebody on 40 meters in Italy. I've spoken to plenty of times. I've talked to somebody in Vienna, Austria, Hawaii.
Wow.
So Anthony, how high above the ground? How high above the ground is this antenna?
It's 8 foot.
8 foot. Okay.
Oh, isn't that
And it
exciting?
works. You know, propagation isn't working for me. You know, if propagation is working great, it's my best friend. If it's not working for me, fine. But I'm having fun operating what I'm doing with.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm working with every day. And and I'm not complaining. I'm having fun. You know.
Oh, that's
but
whole purpose of it.
But the possibilities are endless. You can do anything if you set your mind to it. You have nothing to, you got nothing to lose by trying or experimenting to see if it's going to work.
Yeah. Well, you know,
and I live in an HOA, and I'm restricted. I have no trees.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
And
well, I think if you can just get a wire in the air, I don't care if it's laying on a roof or where it is, just kind of get it out in the air. I think you can make a contact with it laying on the ground, to tell you the truth.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, but get it up there a little bit. You'll make contacts with there, and Martin. One of the things that I tell people that are hams and what kind of just get their light. What kind of antenna do I need? Do I need this fancy this type, or I need this fancy this one, or do I need this one? I said, well, you're gonna have that one's gonna require a tuner, and these are single band different things. But I thought, okay, if you'll spend a couple $100 for a good auto antenna tuner, don't put your money in the antenna, put it in an auto antenna tuner. You can put your piece of wire out in many different configurations: delta loops, long wires, verticals, anything, and that tuner will basically tune that antenna to work on that frequency. Instead of buying an antenna for every band, or an antenna that you got to have a tuner with, just get a good little tuner and have fun.
Yeah, that's the whole key.
I have a question to ask you and Martin about, because I was talking to a gentleman on, I think we did the 20 meters or 40 meters, one of those two, about a month or so ago. And the guy lives in Arizona, and he was explaining to me about you can go buy an old outdoor TV antenna, put it on the mast on your chimney, and then put some radios out along your roof line or whatever, and then hook up an antenna tuner up on the roof, and you can actually work anything. Is that correct, or is it too much noise?
Well, I'm not.
Describe again the configuration. You got
your regular outdoor TV antenna you used to have on your house back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah, the push-up.
Right, and then you have it attached to a mast.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can hook it up to your chimney or mount it to your chimney on your roof.
Okay.
And then you have radios coming down along your roof. Laying down on your signals.
Okay, so what you're saying basically, is take an auto tuner and tune the mast pipe up with a TV antenna on top of it.
Right.
So yeah, sure, that would work.
Is that feasible?
Yeah, and use the guy wire for the counterpart.
Well, no, I think he's loading the guy wires up. You're talking about putting separate. You're talking about putting separate counterpoles on, aren't you? You're talking about separate.
The way it was explained to me is that you can lay out radials and lay it on your roof.
Yeah, you're talking about laying out separate radials for it, and just see that antenna is on the top of the roof. It's insulated from the ground, and it's just a pipe, and it's got a TV antenna on top and some wires off of it. I mean, hey, it's a lot of metal.
People wouldn't know it different because they think that's a TV antenna for your house. In reality, it's a TV. It's an antenna you're using for your HF rig.
Well, that's true. That's true. I mean, you're going to load it up and it's going to work. That's what I'm saying about an auto tuner. You can tune stuff up like that. But in Chris's,
and I just get power into the antenna. If you get power into it, it's going to radiate.
Yeah.
I've also seen stuff on the internet, and I think, I'm not sure if I've seen it on Ham Nation, the guy talking about it. I forget the gentleman's name. I'm sure you know him, or it might have been on your show, where you can have stuff on your fence. Like you could have your ballon on your fence, and you could have it disguised in a bird feeder. Okay, and inside the bird feeder is your ballon, and people wouldn't know the difference. Or a flagpole, or putting stuff on your rain gutter, or your vent on your roof.
Yeah.
Stick an antenna on there.
You just got to try. You just got to try what works, and I can tell you. You will make contacts. If the rain gutters are all you have, people are going to argue that's no antenna. But you know what? If that's all you have, and all you can put up, and you put an auto tuner on a rain gutter, and you talk to people around the country and you work some DX, it's working. So
okay, the gentleman from 100 watts and a wire. I believe his call is Whiskey 7 UID. Okay, the guy lives in Washington State. I've spoken to him numerous times on the radio.
Yeah.
And he says the same thing. And they have contests, and they do this and that, and they describe stuff on their on their Facebook page, as well as their web page, where you can make different types of antennas using 100 watts and a wire.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless.
Well,
And I know you've had them on your
anything.
shoe, and you've had them on your shoe numerous times on your show.
Anything, and you think, okay, do I put up a flagpole antenna? Do I make it resonant? Do I cut it? Do I put a quarter wave resonant 40 meter antenna up? That'd be 33 feet. Well, now you got a 40 meter antenna. You don't have a 20 meter antenna. So why not just put something up like that with an auto tuner on it and let it tune it to any band you want? Now that, people may disagree with me, but I found that that's an easy way out to get on the air on all the different bands. An auto tuner's not cheap. It's going to cost a little money. It'll probably cost you more money than an antenna will. But it's got so much potential to it. When I go over to our home in North Carolina and I'll take my radio over there, I'll throw I'll throw a wire over a tree limb about 30, 40 feet. I'll lay out 3 radios on the ground, and I'll put that little auto tuner out there, and I'll sit on the front porch. I'll make contacts on any band, and I'll make DX contacts. So, I guess I don't want people to overthink an antenna. And in Chris's case here, we got to make it stealth. We got to get him something up in the air that works that people just don't see.
Well, would an end-fed antenna work for Chris?
Well, he doesn't have any place to tie the end off. There's no trees.
Okay.
And there's no fence. There's no trees there. These are all brand new townhouses, and some of them are like 10 feet apart. So that's why I'm saying, hey, a wire over the roof, let it lay on the roof, put a fishing line on it, pull it over the roof, and tie it down on the other side. Make it an upside down U or something, and tune it up.
Well, what about an inverted V if you use that with a dipole or
well,
maybe
you got to inverted V. You got to have a center point to hang it, and then you got to stretch the wires out. And there's no place really to stretch the wires out to, and we don't want it seen.
What about a buddy pole?
Well, a buddy pole. What's the buddy? That's a little short. Is that a little short antenna? The buddy pole?
Yeah.
Sure. You could use mobile antennas or stuff, and build a little dipole with them or something. But
I know that, and I was thinking about getting it a few months back until I'm using what I'm using now. But I thought about getting a cobweb antenna.
Yep.
But then my friends were telling me that would be, being that I have some neighbors that are nosy and so close to me, it would be seen. They think, well, unless that's is that a clothes hanger or is that an antenna? But would a cobweb antenna work in his situation?
No, because the cobweb is it's got a lot of wire on it, and you got to cross pieces, and you got the matching device on it. It looks kind of funny. We're in a restricted area here where nobody can see it.
But he could also put it on a tripod where you can just put it up and just put it down when he's not using it.
Yeah, you could. But we're looking for something that's there all the time. If he wants to operate at 11 o'clock at night, or if it's raining or whatever, you go in there, you turn the rig on, and you hit the tuner, and you tune it for the band, and that's it. So. We're going to play with that. I think it's going to work okay. And like Martin says, even the loop is if there's a way, we might even get a loop around the house somehow and back to a tuner. So there's a lot of things we can do.
Would a vertical work?
Well, yeah, but you got to put it up outside somewhere, and people are going to see it.
Right. Well.
Yeah, so there are a lot of places even today that people don't even allow flagpoles out there.
Yeah.
But here at my house here, I got rid of my tower and my tri-band and stuff years ago, and I've got all wire antennas, and I've got a vertical antenna out here. I got a buried ground system, and I've got an antenna farm out back. They're all in the trees. You can't see the wires; they're just about invisible in those trees. And I've even got a vertical one. I've got a 3/8 wavelength. It was in one of the I think it was in CQ magazine to build this 3/8 wavelength antenna, and I built a little match for it, and it's ground level, and I think it's 47 feet tall, but it's not very noticeable out there. Black wire, standing straight up,
could he put something in the attic?
Well, he's got a very small attic, and you've got a lot of junk in the attic. So, but we're going to look at all different possibilities and see what works best. So we're not going to rule out everything here. Let me announce the phone number again: 712-775-7270. And we'll probably just keep it open another couple minutes because it is getting late. It's getting past Martin's bedtime, and I know East Coast is definitely getting past their bedtime. Give us a call, guys, if you want to say hello to Martin or give us a call. And Anthony, thank you so much for sharing what you're doing there. And I can tell you, from talking to you on the net, it's working fine.
And I meant to ask you earlier doing the net today. I was going to ask you if you would have changed from one antenna to the other if it made a difference, but I don't know if you had the opportunity to switch over from one to the other.
I found today that all three antennas actually performed about the same today. The extended double zip, the delta loop, and I tried the 40 meter vertical and a 40 meter inverted V, and nearly every one of them were bringing you guys in just about equal. But it's kind of funny with QSB. Sometimes one signal would fade down quite low, and a different antenna would bring you back way up. But it really wasn't. It really wasn't real consistent,
Right. And do you know? I know yesterday you were, because I saw it on Facebook that you, and I didn't realize I was out with a friend of mine eating lunch, and I didn't get a chance. I wasn't home, but and I understand you had somewhat issues trying to get on 40 and 20 meters yesterday, where one was better than the other, and I was just wondering if you're planning on trying to do that again.
Yeah, I would like to try to branch out with our nets because right now on 40 meters, that limits it just about to the same people, same geographical area every night. At 5 every Tuesday night at 5:30, about the same people. So. By going to 20 meters or something, now you're bringing in the California and the Washington State and people like that. We didn't have too many people join us on 20 yesterday, but they probably didn't know about it. I'd love for some of our viewers out there that might like to call a net, maybe help us to call a 20 meter net or a 75 meter net or something like that before or after the show. I'll call a 40, or they can even take the 40 over. Well, Martin, I built that. You convinced me on the double zip, the extended double zip. I've got one out there.
Yeah.
I built it. I think it's 172 feet long. It's big, man. I got the center up about 80 feet, open line going up to it.
That's high.
And I got it stretched out, and it seems to do real good. Now, Martin, didn't you say that it's extended double zip is supposed to have some gain? Do any other antennas have gain?
It's around 3 dB over a dipole.
Okay.
A bit less than 3 dB, but that doubles your radiated power.
Yeah. Now let me ask you a question. So if I can with that tuner out there take it down to 20 meters and use it. I'm sure that throws a lot of stuff off the lobes and different things, and it's probably going to operate differently, but of course it tunes up perfect on 20. Do we still have gain on 20? Do we even have more gain?
That probably is. I have to look at the pattern on it.
Yeah.
When you have gain on an antenna like that, it's at a sacrifice of the omnidirectional coverage. It's more focused toward one direction. So there's more power going in one direction and less power going in other directions. But I'm not sure how that looks on 20 meters.
Yeah.
If you use something like a V-beam, which would be just a V antenna, but with very long wires, you can get lots of gain out of that the longer you make it.
Well, I would assume if I built a 20 meter extended double zip, it would have gain. If the 40 has gain on 40, the 20 would on 20, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
20
maybe
meter.
not bringing it down from 40 to 20. It might not function quite the same. I know it still radiates, you know.
Yeah, yeah. On 20 meters, an extended double zip is about 90 feet, about half of what it is on 40 meters.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they work good. I mean, you have to use a tuner. You're feeding it with ladder line or open.
I've got ladder line coming down to the
Yeah.
ground. I've got underground LMR 400 from the shack out to my antenna farm, and it comes up through a grounding bus and everything out there. And then I've got one of your 1.5 kW tuners right there.
Okay.
And I've
that's
got the ladder line coming down, going through a ballon into that tuner.
Okay. That's perfect. I mean, that's the most efficient way to do it. You get very low loss in the ladder line to the antenna. And then once you get it transformed down and make it from balanced to unbalanced and get it down to 50 ohms, then you can use coax all the way to your shack.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing. You know, I got
Good
50
antenna.
50 ohm coming in a shack here, and then of course I'll match it out there. Hey, you just before we go, I'm still going to own the show. I'm still going to demonstrate. You know, I was in the Air Force. I never did this, but I've been reading some military communications manuals where experiments and testing was done in loading up a tree for an antenna. Have you ever heard of that, Martin?
I have. I remember seeing that article. I forgot where it was.
So they loaded it up. They showed the patented thing that they were using or something. Actually, it looks like a coil. It looks like it takes something like a rubber hose and wind a coil around it, you know, all the way around, and then wrap that around the tree, and it couples into that tree through the transformer or the ballon or whatever you want to call that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it couples that way. So I'm going to try that on the show one night, and I'll take that little auto tuner and put it out there, I guess, to tune into it.
That'd be fun.
And also, I'm just going to also try this. I'm going to just try to take a 3 or 4 inch screw, and 3 or 4 feet up. I'm going to go into that tree, into the sap, and a ground down there, and I'm going to try to load the tree up, connecting directly to the sap.
Yeah.
That's option 2. Option 1 would be to couple with the transformer. We'll see how that works, and we'll do a show on that one night.
Once you get that to working, you might even want to try that on yourself.
Well, it just depends on how it works. I have doubts that it's going to be a great antenna, but they had signal, they had complete signal list and testing and reports for distance. They tested this down in Panama, in the jungles in Panama, and they had signal level readings at certain distances using the tree for the antenna and so forth. So I don't know, but hey, this may be a product that, hey, if I get it working, I'm going to bring it down to Starkville, and you can start marketing it at MFJ.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Make a tree tuner.
Tree tuner. Boy, wouldn't it? Tree antenna.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Hey, Tom?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Martin, I got a question. I want to make sure I got this correct. Okay. I believe my antenna that I have on my fence is resident. Okay, because it needs to be, because I can tune it using the internal tuner, which is happy at 3 to 1, but I can get it to go down to 1 to 1.
Yeah.
Okay, and I can work it from 80 meters. I can use it on 40, 30, 20, 17, 15, 12, 10. I don't think I can use it on 6.
Well, I think it will work on 6. The off-center feds normally will work on 6. I think they'll even work on 2, to tell you the truth. But you know, the reason that thing is off-center fed is to find that impedance point where it's pretty consistent impedance point on all bands. For instance, if you fed it in the center, you're going to have 70 ohms on 80 meters, but on 40 meters you're going to have something just out of the ballpark. So, yeah, but by feeding it at 1/3 mark, I don't know, 200, 400 ohms, whatever it is, that's going to be pretty consistent on all bands. And then you can take like a balun, a 4-to-1 balun or whatever, and put on there, and bring it right into the shack, and it makes it a neat way to make it an all-band antenna, and I don't know, it's a cool idea. And Martin, I wish I'd known about that when I was a novice.
Yeah, well, would have made things a lot easier for
Yeah,
us.
I had one antenna, man.
Yeah,
You know.
but we had lots of fun trying to get stuff to work.
Yeah, we did. Okay. Well, guys, we're going to go ahead and we're going to close the show down. Thank you so much, Anthony, for calling in. And
You're very welcome.
We'll see you
but
later.
I'm also saying, if you can keep your radio happy, you got it made. That's the key.
Well, you can keep the radio happy with a dummy load, and you're not going to talk to anybody. But so there's a little bit more to go with it. But hey, it's all experimentation and fun. All right. Well, 73, Anthony. Thanks for calling in.
You're very welcome. Enjoy. 7-3 to everybody.
All
Okay,
participants
we'll see
are
ya.
on hold.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, Martin, I think we had a good time tonight.
Yeah,
Talked about a
we
lot of good
did.
stuff, man,
We
and we thank you for coming on tonight. And
I enjoyed it.
you're gonna have to be on here more often. I know you like to go to bed early, but we're gonna have to start. You're gonna have to. I don't know. You have
Yeah,
permission.
I'll be-
You have permission to sleep late tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
You do not have to go into
Sounds
MFJ. You don't have to go into MFJ. Okay.
Yeah.
You're the boss.
That sounds good.
You're the boss. You don't have to go
Sounds good
in.
to me.
Hey, I really want to come back down to Starkville. I want to come down soon and visit and see everybody. And oh boy, let me get this thing off. Okay, I really want to come down here and visit again. I just don't know when I'm going to come down here. It's it's a couple-hour drive, but it's doable.
Come on down. We're
Yeah,
going
I'd like to
back
come on down and
Bobby's and eat and everything.
yeah, we'll go out and eat. And I need to find a cowbell. I've got some
that's
music.
right.
I can play the cowbell. Okay. Good night.
Okay.
Good night, Martin.
Okay. We'll see ya.
All right, we'll see you later.
Okay.
And I want to thank everybody for joining the show tonight. Thank you for coming in. If you're new, please join our Facebook group. It's called WF5KUB. If you're listening out there on shortwave, send us an email to tom@W5KUB, and we'd love to hear from you. Let's see. What am I going to close the show with tonight? All my stuff has moved around. Here, we'll close with the cat. Here we go.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any questions?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question. It will read his mind. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.